7 Black Stars, 7 people who shook America. Not because of a new hit song or a blockbuster movie, but because they became pioneers of the Buy Back the Block movement. While many successful people chose to leave behind their poverty-stricken past, these 7 stars came back. They returned to face the very streets once eaten away by crime, drugs, and broken promises. Instead of walking away, they opened their wallets, buying houses, and lots, rebuilding the future for an entire community. This wasn't just a real estate deal. It was a declaration turning decline into opportunity, transforming a dark past into pride for a whole community. And what they didn't just change the fate of one neighborhood, it sent shockwaves across America. Does the phrase "buy back the block" sound familiar? It may sound like a catchy rap lyric, but in fact, it became a social slogan within Black communities in the US. Buy back the block literally means buy back the neighborhood, but its true meaning goes much deeper. For decades, Black neighborhoods were left behind. Public investment was nearly zero. What was left were rows of abandoned houses, shuttered stores, and parks where children no longer played. Meanwhile, outside investors rushed in, buying land cheap and driving housing prices sky high. That process has a name: gentrification, forcing generations of poor families out of the very places where they were born and raised. Buy Back the Block was born as a challenge to that system. If successful Black people could rise, could earn money, then they would come back. They would buy homes, buy land, not just to keep the community in place, but to rewrite their own story of development. In other words, this movement wasn't just about property. It was resistance, a way to reclaim ownership, to turn a place once dismissed into a place of hope, opportunity, and pride. And at the center of it all, one name stood out as a symbol. He was the one who turned Buy Back the Block from a slogan into a real plan, a concrete roadmap for his community. Nipsey Hussle, the face of Buy Back the Block. Los Angeles, early 2000s. While Hollywood sparkled with lights just a few miles away, Hyde Park in South LA was drowning in darkness, drugs, violence, and streets few dared to walk. But in the middle of it all stood a young man with bright eyes and a dream bigger than music: Ermias Joseph Asghedom, the name the world would later know as Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey started from zero. He sold CDs on the sidewalk right on the corner of Crenshaw and Slauson. But the very place once branded as a crime zone became the spark that fueled his success. He had no big record label backing him. He built his career independently, self-produced, self-distributed. From 2005 to 2010, he released mixtapes like Bullets Ain't Got No Name, and then Crenshaw. Most striking of all, he sold Crenshaw for $100 a copy. Crazy as it sounded, Jay-Z bought 100 copies, handing Nipsey $10,000 in just one day and placing his name firmly on the hip-hop map. From 2010 to 2018, he continued building his music career, releasing Victory Lap in 2018, which earned him a Grammy nomination and sold hundreds of thousands of copies. But beyond music, Nipsey was a sharp investor. He owned stakes in tech startups, clothing stores, and most importantly, real estate. According to Forbes and Celebrity Net Worth, by 2018, Nipsey's fortune was estimated at $10 million, enough to turn his dream of Buy Back the Block into reality. While many artists poured money into luxury cars and jewelry, Nipsey quietly funneled his money into real estate. He knew that if he didn't buy back these streets, they would fall into the hands of outside investors. And once that happened, locals would be erased forever. It all began at the corner of Crenshaw and Slauson, the same corner where Nipsey once stood for hours, under the sun, selling CDs for a few dollars. Many times he was pushed away, chased off by police for loitering. Yet from that very humble spot, he built his success. And 12 years later, in 2017, Nipsey and businessman David Gross spent about $2.5 million to buy the entire shopping plaza at Crenshaw and Slauson, a deal no one in the neighborhood ever thought possible. Right after becoming the owner of the plaza, Nipsey opened Marathon Clothing, which he called the first ever smart store in hip-hop. Here, customers didn't just buy shirts or sneakers. They could scan AR codes with their phones to unlock unreleased tracks, watch exclusive videos, or download digital content. Marathon Clothing quickly became a cultural tech landmark of South LA, drawing visitors from across the country to Crenshaw. But for Nipsey, this store wasn't just retail. It was like a community hub, a place where people could proudly say, "This is ours." And at the grand opening, Nipsey stood in the parking lot where 10 years earlier, he had been chased away and declared, "I used to stand out here in this parking lot selling CDs. Now me and my community own this parking lot." This wasn't just real estate. It was a checkmate from a hustler on the sidewalk to the landlord of the block. Alongside acquiring the Crenshaw and Slauson Plaza, Nipsey made another bold move. He invested millions into Vector 90, a co-working space in South Los Angeles. In a place long associated with violence, guns, and drugs, Nipsey built an oasis of knowledge. It was a space where Black-owned startups could rent affordable offices without needing to travel all the way to Silicon Valley. A space where young entrepreneurs could meet, collaborate, and build companies right on their own turf. But Nipsey didn't stop there. He knew real change starts with the youngest generation. At Vector 90, he launched a STEM program for kids in South LA, teaching coding technology and entrepreneurship to children who had only known street life and gunfire. Nipsey wanted to turn kids once written off as having no future into engineers, creators, leaders. He once said words that still haunt people today. "If all you ever see every day is violence and poverty, you'll believe that's your destiny. But if I show you code startups and opportunity, you'll believe you can do it too." Vector 90 wasn't just a building, it was a launch pad for a generation. But before his vision was complete, tragedy struck. On March 31, 2019, while standing in front of his Marathon clothing store, Nipsey Hussle was gunned down by someone he knew. The bullets ended his life at just 33 years old. The news spread like wildfire. Los Angeles was shaken. America stood still. No one could believe that a man who had just given hope to an entire community was killed in front of the very place he called his second home. But his death could not kill the dream. In fact, it made Nipsey immortal. The Crenshaw and Slauson Plaza was officially renamed Nipsey Hussle Square by the city of Los Angeles, so everyone who passed by would remember the man who dared to change history. The Real Estate Projects and Our Opportunity Fund, co-founded by Nipsey with T.I. and Charlemagne. Thugad kept expanding, calling on more Black artists to reinvest in their hometowns. The dream of Buy Back the Block would not stop at Crenshaw. It would spread across America. Marathon Clothing still keeps its lights on. More than a store, it has become a pilgrimage site for millions of fans, a place to remember. And to continue the story Nipsey left unfinished. Nipsey Hussle is gone, but he never disappeared. He became the flame lighting the path for Buy Back the Block. He proved that a street rapper could also be the architect of an entire community. And if Nipsey Hussle turned Crenshaw into a symbol of pride, then in Indianapolis, another name is now rewriting the story for his own hometown. Mike Epps, from Million Dollar Comedian to son of the Kennedy King neighborhood, Indianapolis, the 1970s. In the Kennedy King neighborhood at 21st Street and Carlton Avenue, a young black boy grew up in poverty. He watched as his family was evicted from rental homes, while his grandmother struggled to hold on to every old house she had. That boy was Mike Epps, who would later rise to become one of Hollywood's most famous comedians and actors. Born in 1970 in Indianapolis, Mike left his hometown in the early 1990s to pursue comedy. He gained attention through Def Comedy Jam shows and soon broke into Hollywood with hit films Next Friday 2000 and Friday After Next 2002, alongside Ice Cube, made him a comedy star rooted in the streets. After more than 2 decades in the business, Mike Epps built an estimated net worth of $5 to $6 million according to Celebrity Net Worth. And instead of spending it all on luxury, Mike began thinking about returning home, buying back the homes of his childhood. As early as 2003, when he first started making real money, Mike quietly began buying back the houses tied to his childhood. He purchased the home his grandmother had owned in the 1960s, which the family later lost due to financial hardship. He even bought the houses where his family had once been forcibly evicted by police. He held on to them, never selling, because deep down he knew, one day I'm going to come back and bring them back to life. The return, buying back the block. After the shock of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, Mike and his wife Kira Robinson Epps made a decision. It's time to go back to Indianapolis. They launched the project Buying Back the Block, which was filmed and aired by HGTV. Unlike typical home renovation shows, this project carried a deeper meaning. Mike and Kira were buying up the rundown houses in the very neighborhood where he grew up. They renovated them into modern, livable homes, while keeping prices affordable for local residents. In the first season of the show, Mike and Kira focused on 3 key properties: an old fire station on 21st Street that had been abandoned for years. The Epps couple restored it into a stylish private home while preserving its signature architecture. His grandmother's former house, the one tied to Mike's childhood memories, was rebuilt as a living symbol of family legacy. Another decayed house on 21st Street, once a hotspot for crime with peeling walls and broken windows, was transformed into a warm home for a young family. Why does Mike do this? In an interview, Kira Epps explained, "People are gentrifying this neighborhood, buying cheap, tearing it down, and rebuilding for someone else to move in. But we've been here for over 60 years. We want to stay, and we want people like us to have the chance to stay too." Mike Epps didn't just want to fix up houses. He wanted to preserve the soul of the entire Kennedy King neighborhood. He said, "I don't want to see this place disappear. I want it to be reborn, but still belong to the people who live here." After the first successes, Mike and Kira began buying more land in East Indianapolis, planning to build affordable apartments for low-income families. At the same time, they announced plans to expand the model to other cities like Milwaukee and Cincinnati, places facing the same struggles. Black communities left behind real estate, swallowed by outside investors, and locals pushed to the margins. Mike also wanted to buy back a local nightclub and turn it into a cultural hub for adults, a way to restore the community spirit that had been fading away. Mike Epps once made audiences laugh until their sides hurt. But in Indianapolis, he's made many cry, watching a hometown son return, putting his money and his effort into reclaiming houses and streets one by one. This isn't just a personal project. It's a declaration of the entire buyback, the block movement. True success isn't forgetting where you came from. It's going back to give hope. And if Indianapolis has Mike Epps, then in Baltimore there's another name doing the same, but in the way of a boxer. Gervonta Tank Davis, the boxing champion, and his punch against Injustice Baltimore. A famous port city, but deep inside are neighborhoods long forgotten. Among them, Sandtown, Winchester, is known as the Land of Shadows. Over 1/3 of its houses abandoned unemployment, sky-high drugs, and violence filling alleys, trash-lined streets. And it was here that a small black boy grew up. He once slept on bare floors, watched friends fall into crime. That boy would later become Gervonta Tank Davis, one of the greatest boxers in the world. Born in 1994, Gervonta Davis grew up in hardship. His father was incarcerated. His mother struggled with addiction. Tank survived through social programs and a local boxing gym. Luckily, he met Coach Calvin Ford, a father figure who guided him out of the darkness. In 2013, Tank debuted as a professional boxer. In 2017, he won the IBF Super Featherweight World title, becoming one of the youngest champions at the time. By 2023, Tank held a record of 29 wins, 27 by knockout, making him an unbeatable name in boxing. Thanks to million-dollar fights, Tank built an estimated net worth of $10 million according to Celebrity Net Worth. But instead of spending it all on luxury cars, mansions, or diamond watches, he made a choice few expected, returning to Sandtown, Winchester. In the summer of 2023, Baltimore buzzed not only with Gervonta Davis's fights, but with shocking news: the undefeated champion had officially bought 2 buildings on Whittier Street, right in the heart of Sandtown, Winchester. This time, he wasn't coming back to fight on the streets, he was coming back to own them. In a video posted on Instagram, Davis wore a hoodie holding up a stack of property papers. With a proud but emotional voice, he declared, "I started right here, on this street. Now I'm buying it back." This isn't just investment, this is to show the kids that anything is possible. Unlike celebrities who buy real estate just to stash wealth, Davis announced his plans immediately to revive the entire block. He wanted to begin by renovating the 2 buildings, turning them into clean, modern apartments, but still affordable for locals, so working-class families wouldn't be pushed out. And further, his vision was bigger: to buy the entire Whittier Street block, redeveloping it into a community housing zone, with affordable apartments, rental homes, and shared spaces. A member of Davis's team revealed Tank wants to build a model neighborhood, not a luxury enclave for the rich, but a place where Baltimore kids can grow up with hope. The very houses once used as drug dens, once branded as city blight, were now being reimagined by Tank as safe homes for young families. The image of a poor kid returning to buy the block spread fast. Local and national outlets reported on it. On social media, emotional comments poured in. One person wrote, "More and more successful Black people are choosing community over self. And that's the most beautiful thing. And if Baltimore has Gervonta Davis, then in Houston, Texas, there's another name turning Buy Back the Block into action." Slim Thug, the Houston boss and the dream of reviving Acres Homes. Slim Thug born. Stave Jerome Thomas isn't just known as the boss of Southern rap, he's become a symbol of self-reliance, ownership, and giving back. Growing up in Acres Homes, a struggling Black community in Houston, Slim Thug knew firsthand the decay of forgotten streets. By the late 1990s, Slim Thug rose to fame with Swishahouse Records, becoming a Southern rap star. His 2005 album Already Platinum brought him to the peak of his career, earning millions of dollars. But instead of blowing it on luxury cars or diamond chains, Slim Thug saw his future in a different lane: real estate. In 2015, he and close friends founded Boss Life Construction, a company with a single mission: revive Acres Homes. Boss Life Construction began by buying abandoned houses or bank foreclosed properties, then restoring or rebuilding them into affordable homes for low-income families. Within just a few years, Slim Thug and his team built or renovated more than 10 affordable homes in Acres Homes. And they didn't stop there. By 2022, the company had launched new townhouse projects, giving many families their first chance at owning a proper home. The before and after images of these homes shared online touched Houston deeply. Once crumbling houses overrun with weeds transformed into bright modern homes lit up at night. For Slim Thug, buying back the block was never just about real estate. It was about sharing. He once gave away an entire house to a family who survived the devastation of Hurricane Harvey in 2017. He also launched the Boss Life Ball, an annual event honoring Black entrepreneurs, inspiring new business leaders, and encouraging community reinvestment. Slim Thug said it best: "I might be the boss in rap, but what I'm most proud of is being the boss in my own community." Acres Homes was once bitterly nicknamed the largest ghetto in Houston. Today, Slim Thug and his partners are rewriting that story, turning decline into hope. Slim Thug doesn't flaunt diamonds or exotic cars. His greatest wealth is in the streets he's brought back to life. With every home built, with every family able to stay in their neighborhood, Slim Thug has proven Buy Back the Block isn't a slogan, it's a way forward. Not to be outdone by the men, this Black woman lit up an entire community. Issa Rae, from the small screen to the boss lady of South LA. Issa Rae, born Jo Issa Rae. Diop became a household name worldwide through HBO's hit series Insecure. But for the community of South LA, she's not just a writer or an actress. She's the storyteller of a generation. And more importantly, a force bringing resources back into the neighborhood that raised her. Hilltop Coffee and Kitchen, a community cafe. In 2019, Issa Rae became co-owner of Hilltop Coffee and Kitchen, a cafe and co-working space in Inglewood, South Los Angeles. It was the first cafe of its kind in the area, a place that had long lacked spaces for young people, entrepreneurs, and local artists. Hilltop quickly became a cultural hub for South LA, a space where Black residents could meet, share ideas, start businesses, and dream bigger, right on their own turf. In just a few years, Hilltop expanded to 3 locations, becoming a symbol of community coffee culture that locals proudly claimed as their own. In 2019, Issa Rae took an even bolder step. She purchased a commercial building in Inglewood and turned it into the headquarters of Issa Rae Productions, later renamed Hura Media. But Issa's ambition went beyond filmmaking. She wanted to rebuild Hollywood from the ground up, first by giving opportunities to Black artists and underrepresented talents the industry had overlooked. Second, by telling the real story of South LA, not just crime and poverty as the media often portrayed, but also music creativity, ambition, and pride. In just a few years, Hura Media became an influence machine. By 2023, the company partnered with Walmart on the Black and Unlimited program, providing financial grants, technical training, and media platforms to dozens of Black creators, helping them reach national audiences. But Issa Rae isn't stopping at cafes and office buildings. She's announced an ambitious plan to build a studio campus right in South LA. The complex will include film stages, production offices, creative spaces, and co-working areas dedicated to filmmakers, artists, and young entrepreneurs. This isn't just a film project, it's an economic and cultural engine for the entire region, creating jobs and turning South LA into America's next creative capital, meaning beyond the screen. For Issa Rae, Buy Back the Block was never just about owning land. It was about reclaiming the right to tell her own story. She once said, "It's not just about keeping the land, it's about keeping our voice. If we don't tell our story, someone else will. And they won't get it right." To her community, Issa Rae isn't just a writer or an actress. She's a new boss lady of South LA, a woman who used imagination and business savvy to turn a forgotten place into a thriving creative hub. And if Issa Rae used media and culture to rewrite South LA's image, then in Detroit, an underground artist chose a very different path, rebuilding abandoned houses with his own two hands. Alonzo Stallworth, from childhood loss to the block development. Stallworth grew up on Detroit's west side on Archdale Street near 7 Mile Road, a place infamous for rows of decaying houses, overgrown weeds and boarded-up windows. A community nearly abandoned with zero public investment and crime creeping into every alley. But the greatest tragedy of Alonzo's life came from within his own family. On his 5th birthday, he woke up to devastating news both his parents had been murdered inside their home. That loss became a scar that never healed, but also the fire that drove him to one day create a safe environment where children would no longer grow up in violence and fear. Raised without his parents, Alonzo turned to rap as an escape, performing under the name King YTI, Young, Talented, and Intelligent. He never reached Hollywood fame, but music gave him a steady income enough to open another path. In 2018, Alonzo decided to earn his contractor's license. That's when he launched a project called The Block Development. The mission was clear: buy abandoned houses in Detroit, rebuild them, and give them back to the community. Starting with one house. The first house Alonzo Stallworth bought on Archdale Street had been abandoned for more than 10 years. Inside was a haunting scene. Walls, rotting floors, collapsed, shattered windows, rats and filth everywhere. Neighbors shook their heads. That house is nothing but a corpse. It should be torn down. Nobody would be crazy enough to touch it. But Alonzo didn't see it that way. In that pile of rubble, he saw a chance to redeem his stolen childhood, a childhood taken by violence and loss. With a small crew, he spent months cleaning, replacing bricks, painting walls, fixing electrical systems, and rebuilding the roof. Day after day, they worked tirelessly. Then one evening, the house lit up for the first time in over a decade. It was sold to a young family at half the market price, affordable enough for them to put down roots in Detroit. And for Alonzo, that moment was worth more than any rap record or paycheck he had ever earned. From 1 to 30 homes, reclaiming the neighborhood step by step. After his first success, Alonzo didn't stop. From 2019 to 2021, he bought and renovated 8 more houses around 7 Mile. By 2022, the number had risen to 20. And within just a few years, by 2023-2024, his block development project had brought more than 30 abandoned houses back to life. Every time a house was finished, Alonzo recorded a video himself and posted it online, capturing the moment the lights came on. From once broken windows, a warm glow now shined into the night. Smiling, he said, "Every time a house lights up again, I feel like I'm getting back a piece of my lost childhood." A community reborn. What no one expected was the ripple effect. As the houses were rebuilt, crime rates in the area dropped sharply. One Detroit police officer even pulled over, shook Alonzo's hand and said, "You're doing what the whole city hasn't been able to do." Neighbors who had been ready to pack up and leave started fixing their gardens, repainting porches. Kids played outside again instead of staying trapped in damp, moldy homes. Blocks once labeled ghost blocks slowly turned into real neighborhoods once more. A bigger dream, more than just homes. But Alonzo's vision didn't stop with single-family houses. He began imagining something bigger, buying entire apartment complexes and turning them into affordable housing for dozens of families, building restaurants and community spaces to create jobs and breathe new life into the streets, partnering with nonprofits to launch programs for orphans and underprivileged youth because no one understood that pain better than him. From a boy who lost both parents to violence, Alonzo Stallworth had become the man rebuilding Detroit one house at a time. More than 30 homes shining again wasn't just a number. It was proof that Buy Back the Block doesn't need to start with millions of dollars. It can begin with one broken house, two hands, and a promise to the past. The King of the South and the dream of reviving Bankhead. Clifford Joseph Harris Jr., better known as T.I., was born in Bankhead, West Atlanta, one of the city's poorest and most violent neighborhoods. In the 1990s, Bankhead was synonymous with drugs gangs, high unemployment, and rows of rundown homes. But it was also the birthplace of trap music, the sound that made T.I. a legend hailed worldwide as the King of the South. After a career filled with hits like Whatever You Like and Live Your Life, and a fortune worth tens of millions, T.I. didn't abandon Bankhead. He decided to return to buy back the very streets of his childhood so locals could live, work, and be proud of where they came from. In 2017, T.I. turned the slogan, "Buy Back the Block," into reality. Together with Black realtor Crystal Peterson, he launched a community real estate company with one mission to keep Bankhead in the hands of its own people. They began purchasing abandoned buildings and empty lots, renovating them into affordable housing, so locals wouldn't be pushed out by gentrification. Storefronts were leased at discounted rates, giving Black-owned shops, restaurants, and startups a chance to thrive in their own neighborhood. Within a few years, more than 10 properties in Center Hill and Bankhead had been revived, becoming homes and businesses for the community. But T.I. knew a neighborhood couldn't survive on bricks and cement alone. It needed a cultural soul. In 2018, he transformed an old warehouse into the Trap Music Museum, the world's first museum dedicated to trap music, the sound born in Bankhead. Exhibits recreated scenes, images, and art from Atlanta's trap roots, drawing hundreds of thousands of visitors each year. More importantly, it turned Bankhead's name from one tied to violence into a global cultural landmark. By 2021, when the legendary Bankhead Seafood, a restaurant opened in 1968, was forced to shut down during COVID-19, T.I. and fellow rapper Killer Mike stepped in and bought it. They kept the name upgraded, the space, reopened it, and brought back jobs for more than 30 locals. For Bankhead residents, it wasn't just a restaurant, it was a piece of collective memory restored. Soon after, T.I. opened Trap City Cafe right next to the museum. More than a cafe, it became a community space where people could eat, host events, enjoy live music, and where young artists had a stage to perform. From what was once a forgotten corner, the area now pulsed with music, laughter, and light, reviving the spirit Bankhead had long lost. T.I. once said, "If we don't buy back our own neighborhood, someone else will, and they won't think about us." And he turned those words into action. Buying homes, reopening restaurants, leasing spaces at fair prices, building a museum, opening a cafe, all to make sure the people of Bankhead weren't left behind. And more importantly, so they could proudly say, "This is where I live." Today, walking through Bankhead, you no longer just see broken streets. You see the Trap Music Museum lit up, Bankhead Seafood buzzing, Trap City Cafe filled with laughter. And behind it all is a rapper who once grew up in poverty, now using his wealth and influence to turn his hometown into a cultural landmark. T.I. has proven that Buy Back the Block isn't just a rap lyric to get crowds hyped. It's a real plan to rebuild communities, a living legacy as powerful as any hit he ever made. 7 people, 7 journeys, each began in a different place. But when they found success, they didn't run away. They didn't turn their backs. They returned, buying back streets, houses, and community spaces, transforming them into symbols of hope. Buy Back the Block. Once just a rap lyric, now a movement, a declaration, a legacy. What do you think about the Buy Back the Block movement? Comment below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss more incredible stories about today's most inspiring celebrities.